Hey guys, today I am going to be doing my September wrap-up, showing y'all all of the books that I have completed so far in the month of September. We're about halfway through the month, so I'm obviously going, or hopefully, going to finish a lot more books. If you would like to know what those books are, be sure to stay tuned for my vlogs. I give in-depth analysis of all the books that I read in those, and then you can follow me on Goodreads or Storygraph, which are always linked in the description of my videos. Let's get into this. The book that I finished most recently is If I Survive You by Jonathan Escovery. I discovered this book because it was nominated for the Booker Prize a few years ago, and it even made it to the short list. This is a debut short story collection, and oh my gosh, it was so good. I gave it a 4 out of 5. This book is so unique. With our characters, we are following all the men in one family that they are Jamaican immigrants to Florida. Just the way it goes about showing their stories, showing a lot of the same events just through different eyes is really interesting. I would like to compare it to The Last Duel, which is one of my favorite movies, because in that movie we see the same event but from 3 different perspectives and how 3 different people can view that event differently, and the author does something similar in this book. The atmosphere was great, rather it be Jamaica, Key West, or Miami. It's just all, it gets those vibes across perfectly. The writing is, again, where it was very unique. We have all different kinds of third person, first person, second person, all kinds of different present tense, past tense, future tense. The author was using all kind of literary devices, and I always think it's so creative when an author can do that. And it took him 10 years to write this book. So just thinking of how much you as a person grow in that year, so how is your writing going to change in that amount of time, is crazy to think about. But the writing style, Trelawney is our main character, and his story sections are told in the second person perspective, but the you are reading as Trelawney. You are Trelawney when you're reading this, so it really puts you into the character's shoes, and it's just a very immersive reading experience. At times it did get a bit meandering, and I think that falls into the plot as well, which we will begin to the plot shortly, and that's why this isn't a new favorite. It's just it got slow and I got bored at times, but there were some very beautifully written paragraphs that sometimes you had to read several times to get the full understanding, but that didn't hinder the reading experience. That's great. I love when books can do that. As for plot, this isn't a very plot heavy book. It's definitely more character driven, and then themes and ideas of just how race and culture or history are viewed in different cultures, especially between Jamaica and America, that those countries, if we think back to the Atlantic slave trade, are very culturally and historically linked, but how they view it so differently. And I think that is super interesting because it's nothing that I had really thought of before. I never thought of how race was viewed in other countries and how history is viewed in other countries, even though they went through the same thing. Again, that's kind of like how I was talking, how we see the story told from so many different perspectives. So that's, I never thought of that comparison until just now, how we're seeing just the world from a lot of different perspectives, but also we're seeing the divide between first generation born Americans with the Jamaican parents. I'd never read anything about the Jamaican immigrant experience. I didn't even really know a lot of what was happening in Jamaica in the 1970s. So I did learn a lot about Jamaican culture with this book. Every month I like to read a graphic novel, and this month it was A Clash of Kings Volume 2 by George R. R. Martin, adapted by Landry Hugh Walker, and the art by Mel Ruby. This is pretty far into a series, so I can't tell y'all too much plot-wise or anything like that. My favorite character was Catelyn. She's one of my favorite characters in the actual prose novels as well. But I did really enjoy this universe. It's like coming home for me, and I think these graphic novels are the perfect adaptation of the A Song of Ice and Fire books. And I think if those big 1,000-page fantasy books intimidate you, pick up the graphic novels. You're getting the same story, and as I said, it is pretty much a perfect adaptation from book to graphic novel. So maybe you want to start with these and then go to the actual books themselves, or maybe just read this. It's up to you, and I think you'll be fine reading these graphic novels without seeing the TV show. I do love the TV show, but this is more of a book accurate adaptation, and I really enjoyed my time reading. In the month of September, I've been focusing on reading thrillers just as an entryway into the spooky season. As you can see, I have my fall decorations up, so I have loved getting into that spooky season. And I started the month with Uncle Paul by Celia Frimlin. This is a classic thriller book from 1959. The characters, I didn't feel a lot towards them. I do think they were a bit, I'm not going to say they were flat. I didn't get them confused or anything, but I didn't have any connection towards them whatsoever. The atmosphere is great for this time of year. I'm currently dealing with a tropical storm, but going from it takes place in August, so it's a great transitional piece going from summer into fall. I wouldn't say this book is cozy though, but it wasn't thrilling either. So maybe a beach read if you're on vacation and want to read something kind of creepy. There were some instances that were creepy, but again, I wouldn't say this is cozy or thrilling. The writing, it was good at times. I could tell that Celia Frimlin is a good writer on descriptions and all of that. As for plot, this is a thriller, but I never felt thrilled. I was very bored reading this book, and yeah, you shouldn't feel bored when you're reading a thriller. I'm just thinking about this. Like, it felt just so outlandish, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I also read Erin's Diary, an official Dairy Girls book by Lisa McGee. Don't read this if you haven't seen the show Dairy Girls, because you probably won't enjoy it, but I did really enjoy this, and it did really feel like it was that Erin's perspective, and that because throughout the show she's writing this diary, so we're seeing more of her inner thoughts of episodes we have seen on the show, and then some bonus content as well for scenes that weren't in the TV show. So I did really enjoy getting to go back into the Dairy Girls universe. Now we have a romance book, and that is The Music Shop by Rachel Joyce. The characters were so wholesome. If you like Frederick Bachman, I think you would like this book, because it's just really a found family book. I know it's listed as a romance, but I don't know if I would do that. Like, whatever, yeah, I would say it's more of a contemporary book, but yes, it was, the characters so wholesome, you cannot help but love them and root for them. And atmosphere, this is a cozy book. I think this would be more so a winter book, like I think January, February, that time of year. It's taking place in Britain in the mid to late 1980s, and it just shows the grittiness of that time, how it wasn't a perfect time for people, but you can still find joy and love and family even through not so great times in history. I do think the writing was a bit much at times. I do think this could have been shorter. Again, this is another book that can be very slow at times, very dull at times, but I do think it is worth it because it was a very reflective book. I found myself thinking a lot about some of the musical instances the characters were mentioning. If you're somebody who loves music, then I definitely do think you need to pick up The Music Shop by Rachel Joyce. I did have a 5-star prediction this month, but it did not live up to the 5 stars at all, and that is Horse by Gerdeline Brooks. The characters, I expected to feel so much more towards these characters, but no. I started to find the modern day characters annoying, and then I did like our one 1954 character. I don't even remember her name at this point. It was like Martha or Molly, something with an M. I did like her. Martha Jackson. Okay, I did like her, and then I expected to feel so much more towards our 1800s characters of this boy who is growing up with this horse, who's being this horse's trainer, has spent pretty much every day of that horse's life with the horse. I thought I would feel such a great connection to those characters, but I didn't at all, because I thought it would be so interesting to see this relationship between man and beast and man and animal, you know, and I didn't. Those kind of connections usually make me so emotional and really connect because of my love of animals, but in this one, no. The atmosphere was pretty cool though. I liked seeing all these different eras of history and how the author connected all of them. I don't really remember much of what I thought about the writing. I think it was pretty fine then, if I'm not remembering hating it or anything. And then the plot, I love the idea of this plot of how all of this was all connected and how it was connected. As I said before, Martha Jackson, her plotline was my favorite of this painting, of how it was connected to our 1800s plotline. I thought that was super interesting, and I wish we would have got more of that. Martha's are like the chapters we got the least of, and I just wish she would have been more in the story. But intrigue is where this falls through. I was bored because I wasn't connected to the characters, so therefore I wasn't caring what was happening. And then there were some instances in the last 50 pages of this book: police brutality against Black people, COVID. I think those are important subjects. I do not know if a white woman should be writing about police brutality and homicide against Black people. I don't know if she's the one who should be doing that. And I do think these are important topics, but it was very jolting when they came up in this book. And I think books should be written about those topics, but I don't think this book was the book to put that in. It really takes away from this whole story about this horse Lexington and all the history with him. Those plot lines were just a bit much, and I don't think should have been included in the book. Lastly, I read the Illustrated Herbiary. This is the Guidance and Rituals from 36 Bewitching Botanicals by Maya Toll. I didn't like this one as much as I like the Crystallary, but the illustrations are beautiful, and I did learn a lot reading this book, but I think herbs are a lot harder to do than crystals, because you're having to grow these things and all that. When a crystal, it's, you have the stone, and yeah, there are rituals you can do and all that, but this one, it got good towards the end, but for the most part, didn't really do a lot for it. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of September. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. If you made it through this whole video, leave a leaf emoji in the comments below. Bye! If you are familiar with my videos, you're used to seeing Sherman at the end of them. Sadly, Sherman has since passed away, but I would still like to encourage you guys to help your local shelters. Sherman was at the Darlington County Humane Society in rural South Carolina. I always have their link down below in the description if you guys would like to help them, but also help your local shelters as well. You can do that by donating, sharing posts like this one, volunteering, fostering, and adopting, which it's great to do all of those things. Great to help your community, great to help the animals in your community, and I cannot recommend it enough. All of my pets were rescues, they were strays or from animal shelters, and I love them so much, and I know how much love they can give, so knowing these pets at the shelter can equally give that much love, it's amazing. And y'all should totally take part and help out those local animal shelter pets, and please help them.